Pelkey, and I'm going to be doing 2 Booktalks to you guys today. So my first book that I picked is Max's Words by Kate Banks. And Max is a super cool little kid. So I'm going to start it out by saying there once was a really big alligator who had his mouth open super big. And just as he was getting ready to eat the little worm, it quickly dove right into his hole. So that is one of the stories that Max was able to create with his words. So Max is a little boy who just really wanted to fit in, and he always felt like he was missing out on something. He had 2 brothers, and they had the coolest collections. Max's older brother Benjamin likes to collect stamps, and his stamps are so cool. There's so many different colors. They're red and green and orange, and there's stamps that are worth a lot of money and stamps that are not worth very much money. And some that have pictures of flowers, and there's so many different pictures on them. And every single stamp is jagged on the edges and sticky on the what? Back. Yeah, sticky on the back. So Max he thinks those are so cool. And the best part about his brother's collection is it takes up his whole entire desk. So Max one day asks him, he says, "Benjamin, can I please have one of your stamps?" And his brother, what do you think his brother tells him? No, you cannot have one of my stamps. I need all of them for my collection. So then Max is feeling kind of sad, and he goes to his other brother, Carl. And his other brother collects coins. And the cool thing about coins is they're many different colors, and they're many different sizes, and they're worth different amounts, and there's silver colored ones and copper colored ones, and all of his coins are so shiny. He's cleaned them really well. And the cool thing about Carl's collection is, what do you think? It takes up his whole desk. So Max wants to be in on this, and he says, "Carl, can I have a coin?" What do you think his brother says? No, you cannot have my coin. I need every single one for my collection.
Of course.
Okay, so then Max, when he's feeling a little left out, he decides to collect something of his own. And he thinks, and he thinks, and he thinks, until he decides to collect words. He knows they're everywhere, right? So first he starts collecting tiny words like a, the, is, and he cuts them out of newspapers and magazines and anything he can find. But pretty soon, he's getting quite the collection going, right? So he decides to add color words, food words, feel-good words, words that people say to him that make him feel good about himself, spoken words, words that people say to him. And the coolest one is he decides to add words from the dictionary that he doesn't even know. So he's getting quite the collection going, and pretty soon his collection takes up his whole what? Desk. And pretty soon it takes up his whole bedroom floor. And pretty soon, where's it starts going out his bedroom, out into the what?
Living room.
Close. Hallway. It starts going out into the hallway. And pretty soon,
They go to the living room.
well, it doesn't go into the living room, but guess what?
The kitchen.
Max has 2 older brothers who come by and say, "Hey, Max, your collection is pretty cool, pretty good, right? And I was wondering if I could have a word." What do you think he said?
No!
He goes, "No way, I need all of these for my collection." So Max, he's not quite sure what to do with that collection, and pretty soon he starts brainstorming, and he goes, "I have all these super cool words." And he notices that if he puts them in a different order, it makes a different what? Story, right? It means something different. So he is able to start designing some super awesome stories. And pretty soon his stories are so awesome that his brothers want to join him too. So let's see. I'm going to read you one of my favorite parts from the story. And I'll show you some pictures. So it says, "When Benjamin put his stamps together, he had just a bunch of stamps. When Carl put his coins together, he had just a pile of money. But when Max put his words together, he had a thought. So he put together the words, 'Maybe I could trade a word for a stamp or a coin, please.' So he put that together. So he's kind of brainstorming, hey, maybe I could trade my brothers, right? No, Benjamin said. No, Carl said. I've got 1,000 stamps, said Benjamin. When I get a few coins, I've had nearly 500, said Carl. And when I have a few more, I'll have a story, said Max. A story takes a lot of words, said Benjamin. I know, said Max. You don't have enough, said Carl. Let's see, said Max. Do you guys think he's going to have enough to make a story?
Yeah, it's so many. He's gonna probably be able to make like 1,000 stories.
Max sorted through his words. He picked out a few and began arranging them on the floor. Once there was a little brown worm who wished to be a big green snake. Benjamin and Carl stopped what they were doing and came over to look. Max continued his story. The worm slithered through the grass. It stuck out its tongue and hissed loudly. Max stopped to choose some more words. Benjamin butted in. Then along came a big green crocodile. Then it was Carl's turn. I'm hungry, that crocodile said. So that was my favorite part of the story. And I really enjoyed having the opportunity to read Max's words. And I hope you guys get the chance to check this book out and find out what incredible story Max decided to write using his words. So, does anybody have any questions about Max's words? Go ahead.
Where did you get that actually?
Ooh, good question. I borrowed this book from Miss Evan Smith. So I bet she would let us borrow it and read it after this meeting. Does anybody else have another question?
I still have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
But how do worms talk? They don't even hiss.
So what kind of book do you think this would be?
A non-fiction.
It'd be fiction, right? Because it's make believe. And this, I have to say, out of both books, I loved both books, but this was my favorite. So my favorite book that I'm going to do a book talk on it's called Freckle Juice by Judy Bloom.
Freckle
And I got this book from the Corner Library. So this book, I'm going to start it out by saying, have you ever wondered how you could get freckles on your very own face? Well, Andrew Marcus definitely wonders how he can get freckles on his face. He loves freckles more than any kid. He loves freckles more than most kids love candy. And there's a little boy in his class named Nicky Lane, and he is so jealous of Nicky. Why do you think he's jealous of Nicky?
Freckles.
Nicky has freckles. Nicky has so many freckles, they're like all over his face and his ears and his neck. And one of the reasons that Andrew is so jealous of Nicky is because he's got so many freckles on his neck that he thinks that would be pretty cool. One thing Andrew's mom does to him, every day when he's getting ready to leave the house, he's like ready to go and he's going to be on time for school, and he goes, bye mom, and he heads out the door, and every day his mom goes, wait, I need to wash your neck and behind your ears, because she can see a little bit of dirt. So Andrew figures that if he could grow freckles on his neck and behind his ears, would his mom be able to tell if his neck or ears were dirty? No. So he's like, I need some freckles to cover up that dirt so I'm never late for school again. So Andrew loves freckles a ton. He's so excited. He's so excited that he sits behind Nicky almost every day in class just to count his what? Freckles. Just to count his freckles. And one day he gets up to 86 freckles. And then the teacher, Miss Kelly, goes, Andrew, you need to go to reading group. Your whole group is over there reading, and they're already ready for their page, and you're just sitting here. So Andrew got a little distracted by the freckles. And then his whole group was waiting for him, and he kind of became embarrassed. And the worst part about the embarrassing situation is his classmate Sharon. She's so rude to him. She started laughing, and Andrew just felt his face turning red. And he had just kind of had it. He goes, I'm so jealous of the freckles. I'm embarrassed because I can't listen because I just like the freckles so much. And so he had to figure out how to get himself some of those freckles, right? So he goes up to Nicky at the end of the day and he goes, hey, Nicky, how'd you get those freckles? How do you think Nicky got his freckles?
He's good.
You guys can share. How did he get his freckles?
He just was born with them.
Yeah, he tells him, he said, I'm born with those freckles. Okay? And so that kind of disappoints Andrew. He's like, oh man, that doesn't really help me out, right? Well, at the end of the day, they're getting ready to head home, and Sharon had overheard the conversation, and she walks up to him and she says, hey, I got a deal for you. I have the secret recipe for freckles. And he wasn't so sure at first, because Sharon's not very nice most of the time, right? But he wants those freckles so bad, he's willing to talk to Sharon. And he says, okay, well, what is it? And she goes, I can't tell you, it's a secret. And it's going to cost you 50 cents. So she goes, if you bring 50 cents to school tomorrow, I'll bring my secret freckle juice recipe. So Andrew goes home, and he's a little bit worried about it. He goes, that 50 cents cost me 5 weeks to save up, right? He had to save his allowance for 5 weeks to get that 50 cents. But in the end, he decides that probably freckles are worth what? They're worth having. They're worth those 50 cents. So he opens his safe, and he takes out his 5 weeks allowance, and he goes up to Sharon at the end of the day, the next day, and he buys the recipe from her. Okay? And she gives him this recipe, and I'm going to read one of my favorite part from this story really quick, so you guys can listen to it for a second. He chose a big blue glass. He'd start with just 1 glassful, and then drink another if he wanted more freckles. No point in overdoing it the first time. That's what his mother always said. Now, first, the grape juice, Andrew thought. He filled the glass halfway, and it added an ice cube. All drinks taste better cold. He was sure this one would too. Then he added the other ingredients one by one. He added vinegar, some hot mustard, 1 spoonful of mayonnaise, and plenty of salt and pepper. Then some ketchup. It was hard to pour. But what about olive oil? His mother had vegetable oil, but no olive oil. Maybe that stuff looked like the water in the bottom of an olive jar. That's what Sharon must have meant. He put in a few spoonfuls of that. Now for the lemon. Andrew cut one in half and squeezed it. Oh no, a seed dropped in by mistake. He picked it out with his hand. He hated pits in his juice. Now all he needed was a speck of onion, and he was all set to go. He stirred up the drink and smelled it. Oh, it smelled just plain awful. He'd have to hold his nose while he drank it. He stuck his tongue into the glass to taste it, so he took a little taste. Ick! Terrible! He didn't know how he'd be able to manage getting it down. And fast, too. Sharon said the faster you drank it, the faster you got freckles. She probably thought he wouldn't be able to drink it. Well, he'd show her. He'd drink it all right. Andrew held his nose, tilted back his head, and gulped down Sharon's secret recipe for freckle juice. He felt like throwing up. It was bad, really bad. But if he did throw up, he'd never get the freckles. Now he would be strong. So that was my favorite part of the story. I loved having the opportunity to read Freckle Juice by Judy Bloom. And I hope that you guys get to read the book also, so you can check out what happened after Andrew drank the freckle juice. Do you guys have any questions? Go ahead.
So what I was wondering is, what if that is all a joke? What if the person who gave Nikki the freckle juice? Whoa! What if Andrew the freckle juice? What if that's all a joke? What if it's just a way to gross him out, and so she would just laugh and make her feel good.
I don't know. You'll have to check it out and see. Go ahead.
Did he get the olive oil or not?
So I think he kind of was mistaken, right? So olive oil comes in like a jar, and you pour it in like for like cooking and stuff. And he is a kid, so he was like, his mom didn't have any olive oil, and he also said, you know the bottom, like when you dump olives out, there's olive juice in there. I think that's what he used instead. So he didn't actually use olive oil. He used like the water olives are kept in. So not quite. So we'll have to see if his recipe works, right? He didn't quite follow it all the way.